You've been homeschooling for a little while. You may have noticed something that happens every spring. Homeschooling parents begin to talk about curriculum choices for the fall. Companies send out new marketing materials, and the community is all aflutter with the latest shiny brochures and websites promising to inspire your little learner and make the teaching process smooth sailing. And for many of us, we really want that story to be true. We'd love to rely on someone else to handle it and have our kiddos hop up from bed, eager to dive into the lessons. But in spite of that wish, most of us also know the truth. Our little learners have tasted freedom. And not to mix metaphors, but getting that genie back into the bottle would be darn near impossible. So this week, I want to talk about the lure of curriculum. I'm Sue Patterson from Unschooling Mom to Mom, and my own three unschooled kids are now grown. They're 32, 30, and 27. But I'm here to help other parents see that unschooling does work for any family. We just have a few ideas we may need to reframe. So be sure to reach out, ask questions, and know that embracing this unschooly way of life can be scary, but it can also free you from so many rules and judgments that don't even need to happen. Obviously, I can go on and on and on about this, but let's talk about why we're drawn to curriculum at this time of year, especially. I'll bet if we walked through most of our homes, we'd see shelves loaded with unused homeschooling resources, sadly sitting there gathering dust. Set aside because, in spite of the sales pitch, it didn't measure up. The kids resisted. We recognized that the approach didn't work, or maybe the chapters were lame. So we set it over onto the bookshelves. And because we have a little guilt about spending all that money, we hang on to it all. Maybe someday the kids will be interested in this, or maybe it will work for the younger ones. And in my case, maybe for the grandkids. We really hate to admit we made a bad business decision when it came to buying these things. And these thoughts do help us conquer the guilt that keeps being triggered as we walk past these shelves every day. But it's not our fault. After years of school, we're pretty conditioned to rely on experts and doubt our own abilities. And even if you've been moving in an unschooly direction, if you're around a lot of other homeschooling as opposed to unschooling parents, it's easy to get tossed back a few steps. And since misery does love company, I can't tell you how many times I've sat at a park day listening to someone say, yeah, but aren't you afraid of, I don't know, fill in the blank? Or don't you want them to get into college if they want to? Or aren't you worried you're just not pushing them hard enough? Being lax, unparenting. Wow, so much to unpack with all of that, right? Let me just tell you in a nutshell, after 25 years of doing this, watching my own three very different now grown unschoolers, plus hundreds, maybe thousands actually, of others. Yes, I worried too. And in spite of all my worrying, they learned what they needed when they needed it. They got into college, and coercion didn't help anything. It actually created more problems. It's not needed when we're all curious learners, period. I want to invite you to not cave into your fears this year, just this year. Do what you want next year. But for now, buy yourself a little time, a little grace to lean into this newer way of thinking. Don't go plop down a bunch of money for that spelling program because you saw how he spelled something recently, or that math curriculum because your nieces and nephews can rattle off math facts and yours can't. Instead, look for examples in your kids' days that offer you proof that your fear is lying to you. It's definitely overlooking the progress that your little guys are making on their own truly individualized learning path. And while that fear is just trying to keep you safe, it's preventing you from embracing the freedom that could belong to you and your family. Take this month and look for the learning that's happening without your orchestration. Search for the examples that remind you that humans are naturally curious and hardwired to learn. It may not look anything like school, and this is where it's going to take a little courage on your part. Your kids' learning will be more topic driven and interest based than focused on the familiar subjects. They're in there, they're just not as clear cut or packaged in those 45-minute blocks. And not to get too far off track here, but who are those neat little time blocks for anyway? If the child was really inspired by the information, they wouldn't want to stop after an hour. We all know what it feels like to be immersed in something and lose track of time. But stopping and shifting gears every 45 minutes is maddening and for many kind of mind numbing. These section time blocks and covering all the subjects equally, that's part of running a school system and checking the boxes. But we're moving in a more out of the box thinking. That's where the joy in learning is. That's where we step out of the black and white part of the Wizard of Oz movie and into the Technicolor. Yes, it's a little scary, but so worth it. It's so much better for you and so much more empowering for the kids. And here's why. Your child will learn to trust themselves and their ability to find what they need in the world. You and your child can live a full, rich life starting now, not waiting until later, after 18, after graduation, after they're worn out from jumping through other people's hoops. You get to discover what are your child's true interests. They won't have to wait for years into adulthood to figure them out. Your family bonds can be prioritized and healthier than they ever could have been. Your child knows that when you tell them that their learning is really theirs, you mean it. And you are truly in charge of your own lives. What an adventure together you can have. So hopefully this helps you feel a little more confident in walking away from the curriculum purchases. Think how much money it'll leave for you to spend on museum memberships and water park passes and theater seasons and road trips. So many more fun ways to explore and learn about the world. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Click subscribe and let your friends know about these podcasts. I'm on a mission to help parents know that they have choices. They don't have to do all of this in ways that make everyone miserable. So go enjoy your kids, and I'll be back again with you next week. Oh, and I'll leave some resources down below in case you're wanting to follow up or dive deeper. Have a great week.